Welcome to the Bowl Season Stories Podcast, Season 2, Episode 13. I'm Nick Carparelli, the Executive Director of Bowl Season, and today we are joined by sports columnist and talk show host Jean-Jacques Taylor, the host of NFL Red Zone and former Syracuse Orangeman Scott Hanson, and Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl Executive Director Kym Adair. Today's show is brought to you by Sport Radar, reimagining immersive experiences for sports fans and bettors. Our first guest was a sports columnist for the Dallas Morning News and ESPN, a former beat writer for the Dallas Cowboys and radio talk show host, and currently is the president of JJT Media. Please welcome to the show, Jean-Jacques Taylor. Jean-Jacques, thanks for joining us.
Hey, what's up, Doc?
Good to see you. Well, you went to Ohio State, covered the Buckeyes a little bit. Football is a religion in Ohio, as it is in so many places. What's it like to experience and cover college football in Columbus, Ohio?
That's a great question, and let me tell you exactly what it's all about. So, having grown up in Oak Cliff and Dallas, I was a huge fan of SMU because my mom had a boyfriend who coached on SMU staff, and what happened was, so I went to Ohio State because my dad was teaching there. And I didn't really have any juice about Ohio State. And then what happened is my dad asked me to drop him off at campus for a game one day, man. And I drove up there and dropped him off. And I saw those people in scarlet and gray growing across campus. And it was like a love at first sight kind of thing. And I was kind of hooked ever since then. And, that was really it. And so obviously I got invested emotionally after that. But it really started my emotional that kind of ratcheted it up. And my freshman year in college was Jim Harbaugh's guaranteed Michigan win over Ohio State. And so once he guaranteed it and they won, I was all in after that.
People think of Ohio State nowadays, and, of course they're going to go to a bowl game. They're going to probably win the national championship. That's what Ohio State fans think. But when you were in school, the program was a little bit in transition back in the late 80s, early 90s. Covering them along the way. Even the top level programs have times, inexplicably sometimes, where they have little kind of downward curves. It proves you still have to earn it. Tell us, how important is it for coaches and programs to not take these winning seasons for granted?
Oh, I think, it's not just Ohio State. When I was there, it was just a blip. I happened to cover the first losing season in 20 years when I was there. And it turned out to be good for me because it prepared me for how to cover adversity and how to cover coach firings and all the stuff that comes with when a blue blood program struggles. But all you got to do is look at what Nebraska's going through, look at what the University of Miami has gone through, look at what USC has gone through a little bit, and you can see, you need to enjoy the wins. Look at Texas. Look at the Aggies this year. You need to enjoy the winning seasons. You need to enjoy being up at top. And trust me, I enjoy it because Michigan ruined the 90s for me. Ohio State had a lot of great teams where Michigan ruined their season at the end of the year. So I take great comfort in winning 16 out of 17 against them or 16 out of 18, whatever it is. My son is 18 years old, and last year was the first time he knew about a Michigan win over Ohio State.
As a columnist for the Dallas Morning News, you got the chance to cover and have some good conversations with some great coaches in the Big 12 and the SEC. Who stood out as some of the more interesting or impressive coaches that you've spoken to?
I think locally, because I was exposed to him more, is Gary Patterson. And that's because he's a guy who figured out who he is and what he is and how to make it happen and how to get it done. Meaning he took a bunch of 2 stars, 3 stars, put them into a perfect 4-2-5 system for him, tweaked it up, tricked it up, and figured out how to win games against teams that clearly had more talent, but didn't know, exactly who they were, didn't have an identity. And to me, that's the best thing in college football. If you can figure out who you are and what you do, like TCU has done, then it's really great because it shows you that you can compete. Iowa State's kind of doing the same thing a little bit with Matt Barnes there. But it's all about really understanding exactly who you are. You don't need a bunch of 5 stars if you're TCU to compete at the highest level. Now, you need some 5 stars if you're trying to win a national championship. But to compete in the Big 12, you just need guys who understand their role, get a scheme that fits them, And, part of their success, obviously, and what I was really impressed was he had a lot of guys who stayed 4 or 5 years, not guys who left early. And so you get a chance to develop them. You get that 215-pound defensive end out of high school. And by the time he graduates, he's 285 pounds, but he still maintained his quickness because you've been able to put him on a weight program for 5 years. So all of that to me was what was most impressive. And then I think obviously what's most disappointing is University of Texas couldn't figure out their quarterback woes. You can't win in college football without a quarterback, man. They had Vince Young, and they had, I got old man problem now. You know what I'm talking about.
Colt McCoy.
There you go. Colt McCoy. And they had nobody else since then. And so to me, their problem was the opposite of Gary Patterson. They signed all these 5 stars, and there's only one of two things that could happen, my friend. One of two things. Either the coaches couldn't develop them, or they was looking at the wrong sheet for who the 5 stars were.
Well, talking about coaches, speaking about coaches who don't get 5-star guys, I understand you have a good relationship with Deion Sanders that continues to this day. Unbelievable watching College Game Day go to Jackson, Mississippi, and what was able to be showcased that day. What's your opinion of what he's building at Jackson State, and do you think he might eventually end up at a Power 5 school?
I'm actually in Jackson right now at their football facility in one of their rooms that I stole, which is why somebody walked in here for a minute. What he's doing is at one level is not a surprise to me. I've known him for a long time. He had these tremendous youth teams around Dallas, which is called Truth, and they used to just beat the brakes off of everybody. And he's really taking the same concept here. And you're like, well, but that was youth football and this is college football. That obviously is true. But the structure and how you put a program together and how you play with discipline and all that stuff, that doesn't change whether it's youth, whether it's high school, whether it's college, whether it's NFL. He's phenomenal at details. He's phenomenal at leadership. He's phenomenal at organization. And that's why Jackson State, I think, has won 19 of the last 21 games. They're undefeated here. This year, they're 9-0. They're like number 1 in the nation, and pick the defensive category. They lead the nation in that. Their offense had 500 yards last week. He's building a powerhouse, and it's only going to get better as he continues to get more and more recruits up in here.
Yeah, as you know, the champion of the SWAC and the champion of the MEAC play each other in the Celebration Bowl. It's the only 2 FCS teams that are part of bowl season, which we love. We embrace that. Jackson State got upset last year by South Carolina State, so I'm sure they're looking forward to going back there and winning a bowl game, which would be pretty cool.
No, I don't think there's any doubt about that. It's all about domination for them. They're trying to beat everybody by 3 and 4 touchdowns.
Yep. Well, they're certainly accomplishing that. That's for sure. What are your impressions of what the Big Ten is doing? Adding USC, UCLA. Do you like that move? Can you see more of that expansion on the horizon?
At one level, it's cool. At one level, it seems pretty stupid because they're on the West Coast. And I realize football drives everything, but if you're talking about the cross-country team traveling, it just seems odd to me. But, that's where college football is these days. Now, who are we going to beat in the Rose Bowl if USC and UCLA are in the Big Ten? So that again, just seems weird to me. But, hey, man, is it really any stranger than Texas and OU going to the SEC? We're really going to end up with, as people have been talking about, 3 or 4 mega conferences, and they'll just kind of fight it out. I'm not really a traditionalist, but I do like that tradition. And it seems, I don't know, man, it seems kind of off kilter that those 2 teams are coming to the Big Ten. But, it is what it is. And, change is often weird and change is often difficult, but change is coming whether we like it or not.
You said it for sure. Well, Jean-Jacques, we've taken up enough of your time. I know you're busy. Want to let you get back to Coach Prime there. And thanks so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate everything you do for the game of college football and talking about it, promoting it, and just being a fan, just like all of us. So thanks so much for your time.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
We're going to take a short break and be right back. Stay with us.
Vapor Apparel has all your game day essentials, from eco-friendly lightweight sun protection shirts and hoodies to cozy joggers and Sherpa fleece pullovers. Vapor has the layers you need to get outside and stay out longer. Plus, as bowl season's official apparel sponsor, they're creating limited edition shirts for bowl-bound teams made with 100% Repreve fiber from recycled water bottles. Want to celebrate your team's bowl bid with official bowl-bound gear? Get yours and explore more at bowlseason.com.
Welcome back to the show. Our next guest serves as the host of NFL Red Zone, as well as the NFL Network's on-location coverage of the Super Bowl, Scouting Combine, and NFL Draft. He graduated from the S.I. Newhouse School of Public Communications at Syracuse University and is someone I've known for roughly 30 years since our days together in Syracuse. Please welcome to the show, Scott Hanson. Scott, thanks for joining us.
Nick Carparelli, as I live and breathe, how did it take us this long to reunite after all these years?
It's been a tremendous failure on the part of both of us, but we're gonna take this opportunity to rectify that moving forward.
Sounds good.
We often throw around the word student athlete a lot, but I think you probably embodied it as much, if not more than anyone. At Syracuse, you graduated cum laude from the prestigious Newhouse School while playing football as a walk-on for the Orangemen. Did you always have your sights on becoming a broadcaster, or is that something that kind of evolved while you were at Syracuse?
No, I definitely knew that I wanted to be a sports broadcaster from the time that I knew I was not going to be an NFL football player. I was like, well, let me get this straight. They pay those guys money to fly around the country and be in the press box and get to talk about the game and watch the game for free. So that was about mid-high school. I was a good high school football player. I was captain of my team. I was all conference in my little corner of the universe in suburban Detroit, Michigan. And but I was not a big-time Division I player. So I ended up saying, okay, college is about education. It's not just about athletics for me, even though I love the game and still love the game of football. So my dad and I did some research, and we decided, you know what, Syracuse has this awesome lineage of sports broadcasters. Why don't you try and go to Syracuse? So I applied to the Newhouse School, as you mentioned, and I got rejected twice. They wrote me a letter back saying, grades weren't good enough, transcripts weren't good enough or whatever. And I was like, and then the competitor in me kicked in. I was like, oh, okay, I'm not good enough to do this. Let's go. So what they did was, on the second rejection, they let me go to the Arts and Sciences College, and with an option to transfer into Newhouse if I hit certain levels of academic performance and certain milestones and whatnot. You had to take so many credits, get this grade point average. There was a feared grammar, spelling, and punctuation test that you had to pass to reach the threshold of being a Newhouse student. And everybody on campus was like scared of this test. They thought it was the hardest thing in the world. And so I went to the Arts and Sciences School, but I loved football so much. I said, I'm going to try and walk on the team. I'm not a Division I talent. I was probably a Division III talent ability wise. But I'm like, I love the game. And if they want someone who loves the game, I'm going to try and walk on the team. And so I did a letter writing campaign. You remember, Coach McPherson and his staff back in the late 1980s. My senior year was 1989. And so the summer of 1989, I wrote, I think it was 7 different letters to Coach Mack and the staff saying, here's who I am. I would love to walk on. I'm hustle. I'll be the best attitude guy on the team, all this type of stuff. Never got a response back. 7 letters. And I kept thinking, I must have put the wrong zip code down because, clearly they want me, on the team and whatnot. and of course, they were just being thrown into a pile. But after like the 7th one, I found out a couple of years later, one of the assistant coaches told me that Coach Matt came in with this little mini stack of letters saying, well, there's this kid in Michigan who wants to walk on here. Okay. And he delegated it to someone. He said, you call him and tell him he can have a 4-day tryout. Back then, the freshmen would come in before the varsity players, or I say varsity, the freshmen would come in before the upperclassmen. And so there was a 4-day orientation period for the scholarship freshmen. They also morphed that into a 4-day walk-on tryout. And after those 4 days, I was one of the last men standing. So I made it, and not only made it through the 4 days, I ended up staying for 4 years and had an amazing experience at Syracuse.
I never knew that story. Well, you can't always control timing, but you and your teammates during that time, you were combined 20-4 during your junior and senior years.
Yep.
And in your 4 years, you were 4-0 in bowl games, went to four,
Yes.
won all four of them. Places like the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, the Aloha Bowl in Hawaii, the Hall of Fame Bowl in Tampa, the Fiesta Bowl in Scottsdale. Like you almost couldn't draw up a bowl set of bowl experiences better than that. Talk about those trips. What it was like to go there with your teammates and the fun of the week leading up to the game and then the game itself. Do you have a favorite one?
Well, first of all, being 4-0 in bowl games is one of my proudest accomplishments in my life, because obviously it's a team achievement and football is the ultimate team sport. But nowadays, as many bowls as there are, it's probably not, it's not rare at all that a freshman to a senior would go to 4 bowl games. But to be 4-0 at the end of those bowl games is still pretty rare. It was definitely rare back in those days.
And beat some pretty good teams in those 4 games.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We played, let me see, in order, we beat Georgia, which Georgia wasn't at the level that they are now, but they were still Georgia, and SEC strong power. And that was in Atlanta. So we played them in their own backyard at the Peach Bowl. Arizona, who was the coach? Was it Dick Toomey, I think, was the head coach of Arizona? And they had some NFL talent on that team. And that was the second year at the Aloha Bowl, which was on Christmas Day, back in the day on Christmas Day in Honolulu, Hawaii, which was an unbelievable experience, for a college sophomore. Then in my junior year, Ohio State, we beat Kirk Herbstreit and Ohio State in my junior year bowl game, the what was then the Hall of Fame Bowl, January 1 in Tampa, Florida. And then my senior year, the Fiesta Bowl, 2 top 10 teams head to head. Bill McCartney's Colorado Buffaloes, which for the newer college football fan audience, you might think Colorado's not an elite program. They were up there with Oklahoma and Nebraska back in the day. They won a national championship at one time. And we beat them in the Fiesta Bowl as the crowning achievement. The last time I walked off a football field with a helmet on was the Fiesta Bowl, January 1, 1993. And I'll never forget it. I could tell you stories from here till tomorrow about each and every trip. I would say 2 things about what was my favorite. When they announced we were going to Hawaii, they told us, like, in a team meeting room. You can imagine what the team meeting room was like. A group of kids from Syracuse, New York, and we found out probably early to mid-December that we were going to be in Hawaii on Christmas Day. There was probably a foot of snow on the ground in Syracuse at the time. When they announced that, the room erupted. And
there probably wasn't a guy in the room that had ever been to Hawaii at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And so we were like, what? And then the Fiesta Bowl, because the Fiesta Bowl was and still is one of the premier bowl games in all of college football. We had 2 losses at the time, so we were ranked, I want to say going into the game, we were still in the top 10. And then when we beat Colorado, we finished 5th in one poll, 6th in the other poll. But it was just elite. And it was the practices and the intensity and the buildup for, gentlemen, you can finish as one of the top 10 teams in the country and maybe even top 5 teams in the country. That was a level of competition that was unparalleled for my own playing experience. And it was amazing to be a part of. And of course, they roll out the red carpet on all of the bowl games. And I don't know if you want to hear a story, but like Kyle Federley, it's a name that you and I both know. He was and still is, I believe, the equipment manager at Syracuse. And one of his jobs around bowl season was to come into the team meeting room and say, okay, gentlemen, you're going to the Peach Bowl. Okay, gentlemen, you're going to the Fiesta Bowl. You're at the Hall of Fame Bowl. Here is what the gift bag that you get upon arrival as a player will be comprised of. Meaning, what does your sweatsuit look like? Do you get a watch? Do you get a video game system? Do you get headphones? Do you get whatever? And there's an allotment. I think it still works the same way. An allotment of gifts that the players get when they arrive on site. And that was always the fans don't understand that college kids, we're like, what kind of free stuff can we get? What type of, what's our swag? We getting shoes, we getting sweatsuits, we getting hats, we getting watches, whatever else. And that was always one of the most fun times. And that was before you even get to the bowl game. Bowl game experience is it's unlike anything else. For fans at home, you think, okay, it's 60 minutes of football and you hope to get a competitive, high scoring game, something fun to watch. But the whole process for a college football student athlete is amazing. And I don't talk about it a lot anymore, only when I do interviews and stuff. But even having this conversation right now brings back tremendous memories of my teammates, myself, and the experience that we had.
Well, tell us another one. I mean, another thing people don't understand. I mean, they turn on the TV for 3 hours and watch the game, but they don't realize that you guys have been there 3, 4, 5 days.
Yes.
Doing all sorts of activities and having fun again with your friends, with your teammates that you would never do otherwise. You know, any of those events kind of stand out in your mind?
Yeah, we had at the Aloha Bowl in Hawaii. Two of the guys on our team, two of our starting linebackers, a guy by the name of Dan Conley and a guy by the name of Glenn Young. They were really close friends. They were two starting linebackers on our team, and they were both like these chiseled bodied guys, right? Just ripped up weight room guys. And they decided on the free time that they allot, like you said, you're there for about a week. And they decided they were going surfing. And I remember the coaching staff was like, okay, wait a minute. We're not going to have one of our players drown before the game here. So they were kind of hesitant for it. But ultimately what they wanted was just to get out in the surf, mess around. They didn't know how to surf at all. And they probably, smashed against a wave and whatnot the first time out. But they took this photo. I remember they took this photo and they flexed their shoulders, their pecs, their abs, like for this photo. And it became, I think it was the cover photo of the game program for week 1 the next year. Like, hey, you come to Syracuse and you get to go to Hawaii and you can be a surfer boy and stuff like that. They were like this, almost like this pseudo marketing thing. And of course, Glenn and Dan at the time wanted all the girls on the beach to see them, out there in their Syracuse shorts trying to surf in the ocean off the coast of Oahu. So that was fun and funny. We were all sitting there going, okay, guys, getting to go to amusement parks. I remember going to Busch Gardens, and then you learn some of the biggest, toughest, fastest, strongest guys on your team are scared of heights and roller coasters. And they're like, no, I'm not going on that roller coaster at Busch Gardens in Tampa before the Hall of Fame Bowl. Oh, no. And you're like, dude, you run me over in practice all the time. You are invincible. You are, and you're scared of this? Like, we would laugh. We'd have a good time. Team meals are always fun at a bowl game. Imagine back then it was 95 was the scholarship limit. So we had about 100 guys on the team. It was 95 scholarship guys, and then me and 2 to 3 other walk-ons. So about 100 guys. Imagine taking 100 guys plus coaches plus support staff to eat anywhere in Tampa or Hawaii or Arizona, imagine that. So we would take over a restaurant. Of course, they had it all prearranged, but occasionally they would have, for what they would call a goodwill, like an goodwill ambassador type team building exercise. They would have you, Syracuse team, and our bowl opponent in some massive, massive facility that they rented out. So you're talking about 250 to 300 people. And of course, we're playing y'all in a few days. And all it took was like one guy looking over at the other table over there, like sizing up the other team and whatnot. And remember, the coaches were like, let's sit some coaches in the tables in between just to make sure that these fellas know the game isn't till January 1. It's not now. So that was fun as well. In Hawaii, I got to play. I was chosen as the representative from the team to have the highlight experience. And I'm sure some of you guys know what highlight is, but for those who don't, highlight is I believe it's a South American or Central American sport of origin that some places in Florida have. It might even be Cuban, I'm not sure, but have incorporated into a game that you can go and play and wager on in Tampa and some other areas. And it's got the ball is like a little smaller than a baseball, and it's rock hard. It's basically a rock.
Do you know what that ball is called? Do you know what the name of that ball is?
A pelota.
Pelota. Very nice. Very nice.
And then they strap onto your wrist, onto your hand and your wrist, this huge curved, looks like almost like sort of like a lacrosse net, although it's solid. And that is called the cesta, I believe, if I remember. Is it good, right?
You are on top of your highlight. Yep.
I haven't talked about this since like 1990 something, but they strap that on, and then you have to put the ball in there and you sling it up against a wall, a hard wall, almost like racquetball, kind of picture that. And the ball can travel, when the pros do it, the ball can travel like 150 miles an hour or something like that. So they had 2 guys from Ohio State and 2 guys from Syracuse, one of which was me, in this highlight court. And we were trying to sling the ball up against the wall. And then the pros were sitting there on the sidelines. They taught us how to do it within 5 minutes. We tried to do it. And then they got to vote on who was better. And I remember that myself and my Syracuse teammate beat the Ohio State guys. We were like, oh, yeah, we own you guys come January 1st. We got you because we beat you in highlight, even though none of us knew what we were doing. But yeah, you get to have experiences that, I mean, I've traveled the world. I've done some amazing things. My bowl game experiences with my team gave me experiences and memories that I've never had since. And this is 30 years ago. I'm so thankful for the way that Syracuse traveled in bowl games and the way that we went about enjoying some fun as well as the practice week leading up to the all-important game. It was a great time in my life.
Those are great stories. Well, now you're the host of NFL Red Zone, which just looks like craziness. Tell us what your work day is like on Sundays.
Well, on Sunday, Sunday is game day, obviously. It's a little bit like a football team or being a football player in that I build up my entire week, builds up to peaking on Sunday. During that 7 hours, I've got to be at my best, but it's all preparation and practice and focused and thinking about how we can give our audience the absolute best show on Sunday. So much like a player practicing to lead to peak during that 60 minutes of their game on Sunday or Saturday in college football. But Sunday morning, I'm talking to you from Los Angeles. So we're on Pacific time, obviously. I wake up at 5 a.m. on Sunday morning. I like to be the first one into the studio. I get to the studio a little after 6. And I get all my notes that I've compiled, all the different facts, figures, stats, things that I want to talk about during the show, or I anticipate I will talk about during the show, out on the broadcast desk. Then I go and I get fueled up. The chefs at the network make me the same dense protein, salty breakfast every single week for this is year 14 of the show. Easily for like 12 straight years, I've eaten the same exact breakfast on Sunday morning. And I say dense proteins and salty because I need my stomach really filled, because for the 7-hour show, I don't eat another bite of food. And it's about a 11-hour gap where I don't eat, because I eat about 3 hours before the show. And you're wondering, well, who cares about your diet or whatnot? Well, I famously or infamously do not take bathroom breaks during the entire 7-hour show. So input equals output. I cut off all liquids and food 3 hours before the show, but I still got to have the energy in me. So I have this huge breakfast, and salty because I can retain water that way. And I use the facilities right before I go on air. So about the games begin at 10 a.m. Pacific, about 9:55. When you all are watching the countdown clock on NFL Red Zone, the famous 5-minute countdown clock, Uncle Scott's in the restroom having nature call. And then I buckle in and I do not leave my position for 7 straight hours. It's focus on the football, and it's a thrill ride. I mean, it's ad-libbed for 7 straight hours. Nick, you get the impression once again, I'm sure you knew back in college, and you undoubtedly by this interview know now that You just need to wind me up. I can talk and I can go for 7 straight hours, no problem. And it's just having fun with the United States and the world that's watching NFL football and use NFL Red Zone as their source for the most competitive sport on the planet, for my money. It's fun to be in the captain's chair of that show.
Well, it certainly comes through that you're having fun for sure. And you are never at a loss for words. We knew that coming in, and we know that even more now, which is one of your many great qualities, Scott. Last question for you. You get a chance to watch much college football these days with your busy schedule. Bowl season's coming up. Syracuse is going to be there, which is rare these days. People, today's generation doesn't know Syracuse to be as good as it was when you and I were there. But you're going to watch them this year?
100%. I've been following the Orange. I loved their undefeated start. They gave Clemson. They stood toe-to-toe with Clemson at Clemson. Couldn't pull off the victory. Still got some business to take care of before we find out where they'll land on the bowl calendar. But I'll 100% be watching. And Nick, the answer to your question, do I watch college football? Oh, do I watch college football? In fact, if I can pivot my camera here, I'm in my place here in Los Angeles. I sit right here at this table. I'm on the other side of the table right here doing all of my NFL research on college football Saturday. And my face faces this direction right here, which faces my media wall here. This is my media wall of 5 televisions. And one's blank right there right now, but I have 5 TVs, and I put on the 5 best college football games at noon Eastern time, at 3:30 Eastern time, and then into the night games as well. I've got the best 5 college football games on constantly throughout the day. I'm a college football junkie. NFL butters my bread, but I love college football and love watching what these young men put on television every single week. And I even look at the bowl calendar, bowl projections, like ESPN or CBS Sports or some of the other outlets will do bowl projections. I start looking at those here in November, even though there's still plenty of football to be played, to see who's going to end up where, what the bowl matchups, what awesome stylistic matchups would we see, what classic powerhouse programs will be matching up in bowl games. Oh, I'm a junkie and I love it. So I love all the work that you and your team do to get us amazing football from, mid to late December all the way through the national title game.
Thanks, Scott. That's your setup is surely going to be the envy of anyone who's watching this. Pretty sweet. Well, I've taken up enough of your time. Really appreciate you joining us. You're one of those guys, Scott, even though we don't see each other often enough, when you come up, I kind of point to that. I say, yeah, that's a, I know Scott, he's a friend of mine. We go way back, and there's never a doubt that when we do connect, we're going to pick right up where we left off. So let's make sure we don't wait so long to get together again next time.
100%, Nick. By the way, just real quick, my dad was your biggest fan. I don't know if you remember that or not, but when my dad would travel to bowl games and whatnot, when he would get to meet you, he's like, Nick Carparelli, that guy is going to be a galactic success in his life. And my dad was prophetic back in the day there. Great to see you, Nick.
Yeah, I remember very clearly seeing your dad, and he used to seek me out, and you would bring him to talk. And I don't know. I maybe even to this day, I'm not sure why he saw that in me. He was always a pleasure to talk to, and that was I remember that very clearly.
Keep up the great work, bud. Let's get into the same city at the same time and break bread together.
Absolutely. Thanks, Scott. We're going to take a short break and be right back with the Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl Executive Director, Kym Adair. Stay with us.
The forecast for this tax season? It's going to rain refunds, lots of refunds. File for less and get more with TaxAct, the official tax filing software of bowl season. Go to taxact.com to get started today.
Welcome back to the show. Our final guest is brought to you by Tap It. Understand how going cashless builds loyalty, engages fans, and boosts your bottom line. We now welcome to the show the Executive Director of the Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl, Kym Adair. Kym, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, Nick. Happy to be here.
I want to start out by asking about your Barstool Sports partnership. Barstool is obviously a popular brand. Might have raised a few eyebrows when you announced them as your title sponsor 2 years ago. But tell us, how did that vision come to fruition? And from your view, what does Barstool bring to the Arizona Bowl that gives you a unique advantage?
Yeah, we were so excited to start having conversations with Barstool. Barstool happens to be the third largest sports brand and sports media company in the country. They have a huge following. It's something that can't be denied. And they're innovative and exciting. And we're attracted to that. We feel like we're in an innovative type of bowl. We were the first bowl to be on a streaming platform back in 2015 when we started. And then we went back to traditional linear broadcasting. And we're excited to be back on a digital streaming platform, which is the way broadcasting is going in the future. As you know, Nick, the college football fan tends to be in an aging demographic, and we've got to attract those young kids. And Barstool has the attention of young kids, young fans, so that we can continue to grow the incitement, enthusiasm about college football. And, Barstool brings a ton of energy. I can tell you last year before our game got canceled, they had 32 cameras ready to take in all of the action as compared to 10 from our linear broadcast partners. So there's going to be some really exciting things. And also Barstool brings basically a whole nother team of people to us. We've got the two teams from our conferences, but we also have the Barstool team, people that are just excited to come and be a part of the festivities and meet the podcasters and content creators. And we're really excited about what this brings to us.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it too. It's the way people consume video and especially live sports is evolving so quickly. And for you guys to be the first one to kind of take that chance and go this route is a lot of eyeballs are going to be on you just to see how it works out. So good luck with that. Now, you've been the executive director and CEO since 2018. Before that, you were actually the senior vice president of marketing and business development with the title sponsor of the bowl game, and actually negotiated the contract that you would eventually have to live under as the executive director, which is very interesting and unusual as well. I'm pretty sure you're the only person that went from being the title sponsor of a bowl game to being its executive director. How did that happen? And did you ever see yourself running a college bowl game when your business career began?
Yeah, so that transition was really funny. Tucson's a great town. It's a big town, but with a small feel. And I say that I was with the bowl on day 2. So our founder, Ali Farhang, is a good friend of mine. He contacted us about being the title sponsor. I negotiated a killer contract for Nova Home Loans, which like you said, I had to live under. I sometimes regret doing so well for them because coming back and living under a different contract is always a different experience. But it was a really fun, exciting time to be a part of a brand new bowl game as it started to, grow and evolve into something that's so important to our community. And, I've loved it. I never thought I would be in sports, but in my career, I have negotiated a lot of sports marketing contracts. So I understand the landscape. I understand what goes into ensuring that sponsors are happy and that everybody is successful in the adventure of a bowl game or in a sports contract. And so I was really excited about the challenge. And, I was the only girl on my 1980 Little League team, Nick. So I've been used to playing with boys and making my own way for a very long time. And so I was excited about the opportunity to join into the bowl season landscape. Yeah.
Well, I've seen you in action, Kym. You are certainly not afraid to mix it up with the boys. That's for sure. What have been some of your personal favorite highlights in your involvement with the Arizona Bowl?
Oh my gosh, there's so many, but I would have to say, if you asked, a lot of people involved with our bowl, they would probably give you the same answer that I'm going to give you, which is our 2017 game. In 2017, we hosted New Mexico State Aggies versus the Utah State Aggies versus Aggies. But the real story was like something for the movies. New Mexico State hadn't been to a bowl game in 57 years. And we finally were able to invite them that year to our bowl game. And 57 years ago, guess who they played? The Utah State Aggies. And so it was 57 years in the making. The last person in Las Cruces turned out the lights there and drove here 4 hours to Tucson. So it couldn't have been a better environment. They drank us out of all of our beer. They filled up the stadium. It went into overtime and New Mexico State won it and rushed the field. And it was a hugely popular, exciting moment for all of us. And you know what? When people say, gosh, are bowls necessary? Do we need so many bowls? I'll tell you, Las Cruces still talks about our bowl. It was still the last time they've been bowl eligible and went to a bowl, and they still talk about it. It was their Super Bowl. So these bowl games matter not only to the communities that host them, but to the fans that come to them. And I'll tell you, there's no better game than I think we've hosted in our years. So it's definitely 2017.
Yeah, what a great story. So many people just focus on the playoff games, and we all know college football is unique. It's not built for the majority of teams to realistically aspire to be in the playoff every year. And the experiences that your bowl provides, and many of the others are memories that last a lifetime for these guys.
Yeah.
What a great story. Well, you're one of only 5 female executive directors of bowl games. And that's the most we've ever had. It's been less than that for a long time. What do you tell young female executives who are looking to take their career into sports and other business aspirations?
I say go for it. I mean, I think we're at a real tipping point. I think you're noticing a lot of women now that, there are some folks retiring or moving out of these positions, that women are getting a fair shot at these jobs. There are so many. I've been so impressed by so many incredible women at the top of their game in sports and athletics. And it's a very exciting time, I think, for everyone. And I'd say go for it. It was interesting. I was one of 2 when I joined, and now I'm one of 5. And as opportunities are opening up, women are filling them. And there's no reason why that glass ceiling shouldn't be shattered by now. And I think it probably is. And it's a very exciting time to be a woman working in sports. I hope next year I won't even get this question anymore, because it'll be something that isn't novel anymore. It's just something that's routine.
Well, I'm going to ask you 2 questions here, and they're related. And so I can just kind of allow you to elaborate on them. The 2021 game was canceled due to COVID. How has the bowl game and your team worked to bounce back strong this bowl season? And then what's next for the Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl? What are your goals in growing this game over the next few years?
Yeah, I can tell you it was a really a deflating moment when we had to cancel our game in 2021. We sort of liken it to like a national championship team, right? We've been winning. We've been doing all of these great things all the way along the way. And then at the very last moment, we didn't get the result we wanted, but we are still stronger for it. We're still more excited for it. We've got a great foundation for the future. And that's where we are now. We couldn't have gotten through that very difficult time without the support of so many of our sponsors, including Barstool Sports, who have been incredible. And I can tell you, we are back and better than ever. We just last week had our kickoff luncheon. We sold out with 1,000 people coming to our kickoff luncheon. And we had Rob Gronkowski as our keynote speaker, which was, I can't tell you how fun that was to interview Rob on that stage in front of all of these fans. And it was a fantastic event, and we're just getting bigger and better. We announced last week at that kickoff luncheon that Barstool is investing $1 million in our local community, small businesses that are still struggling through some of the effects of the pandemic. So that's amazing for our community. So we're rallying, we're exciting, we're working hard to sell out Arizona Stadium, because we are a game with a goal. And our goal is to give back as much money to charity as we possibly can. And if we sell out the University of Arizona Stadium, we'll be able to write checks for $1 million for our local charities. And that's really what we're focusing on. And I'm excited about the Barstool effect. I'm excited to see what this broadcast is like. There's a lot of enthusiasm and energy in our community who's rallying around the game, which is very exciting. So, it was tough last year, but it's going to be an amazing year this year. I can feel it.
No doubt about it. Bowl season starts in roughly 5 weeks, and your game is smack in the middle of bowl season. So I can't wait to see your game, Kym. And I can't wait to see all of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me too.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate certainly everything you do for your own game, but what a great partner you are, and everything we do at bowl season, and for all you do for the game of college football. Really appreciate it, Kym. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nick. Take care.
And thanks to all of you for listening to this week's Bowl Season Stories podcast. Please join us next week when we will welcome another lineup of great guests. If you like the show, we'd appreciate you dropping a 5-star rating for the podcast. And as always, you can follow all the podcast and bowl season news on our website, bowlseason.com, and on social media at Bowl Season. Thanks for listening.